Hello and welcome to another episode of They Don't Teach Us in Law School. I'm your host, Charlie Mann of law firm Alchemy. And the guest today, I first saw him a long time ago as part of GLM. And then I started following him on LinkedIn, saw some of the stuff that he was putting out there. I was like, this guy has built a really cool firm. He has such a distinct point of view. He's willing to state his beliefs and back them up while still opening space for others who have contradictory ideas to do earnest mental combat with him in a way that's so positive, builds people up. He also has the best collection of suits of anyone that you're going to see in this profession, in my opinion. And so I'm really excited to talk with him about a wide variety of things in success and life with my guest today, the managing partner of Brown Law Firm, Marco Brown. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you very much for having me on. This will be a fun conversation.
I'm certain of it. So, Marco, let's kick it off. What's the one thing they don't teach you in law school?
They don't teach you how to get paid in law school.
Oh, baby, we're coming in hot with this one. All right, floor is yours. They don't teach you how to get paid. Let's dig in.
Yeah, so this comes from my experience as an attorney. So very, very quickly, I graduated in 2007. I clerked for a year after that, and then I go to an insurance defense firm. Worst job I ever had. That includes cleaning toilets, the whole bit. So I leave there. In 2010, my wife wants to come back here to Utah to get a doctorate. I said, "Great, I hate my job. Let's go." So start a law firm in the middle of the Great Recession because I realized when I was working at the insurance defense firm that I'm a terrible employee, like just an awful employee. So that's not working. So we're gonna do my own thing, and uh, just had to make it work. But I knew nothing about the business of law, and I got paid for the first probably 5, almost 6 years of the law firm. I think I got paid maybe 50 cents on the dollar. And then I had an
Fun.
experience. Yeah, fun euphemism for really terrible. Yeah. So I had an experience in 2015 that kind of changed my life quite a lot. And the first thing I did after that experience was, hey, maybe if I want to change my law firm and change my life, I should get paid 100% for the work I'm already doing.
Hmm.
And so then I had to go figure that out. And because it's not taught in law school, it's not taught kind of anywhere. Like even in business school, they don't teach you how to actually get paid. Like it's a skill set, and there's a system for it. So I had to invent all of that because it just no one talked about it. And yeah, so I just had to go through and figure it out.
So, I mean, I've got to ask because I know that this is a problem. And I actually just saw an attorney that I work with start talking about that as well, about issues with accounts receivable. What were some of those first steps that you took to fix that problem?
So the first step I took, and I think it's the first step that everyone needs to take, is they have to change their mindset about money because
Yeah.
we as attorneys are we're taught certain things about money, and usually kind of that money's bad and we should give away all our stuff for free by doing pro bono work and that kind of thing. So
Hmm.
you have to change your mindset about that and be okay with getting paid and be okay with getting paid 100%. And not only be okay with it, but love getting paid 100% and really admire people that do get paid 100%, right? Because if you don't admire people to do the thing you want to do, you're never going to do that thing. So that's kind of the first bit. And then after that, it was really, hey, I need to bill regularly.
Hmm.
So I'd been billing every 2 or 3 months, maybe. I was really sporadic about it, but you have to bill regularly, and then you have to stop doing work when people don't pay you. And we can go into all of this, but you have to stop doing work when people don't pay you. It's a really good idea to have a retainer on hand, like actual retainer money, so you're not like
Hmm.
dipping below zero and so on. And then, another big part of it is you got to fire bad clients because when you're 50 per, getting paid 50 cents on the dollar, and then you go to 100, there are going to be a lot of people that don't like this, right? And that's your
Yeah.
fault. That's really your fault. But there are going to be a lot of people that don't like it, and you're just going to have to let them go uh, because you'll never get there unless you let go all of those kind of F clients.
One of the biggest fears that I hear regularly among firm owners who have the billable hour is what you described of stopping the work, right? They're really scared of that because not only does it feel like somehow they're going to miss out on future money that may or may not arrive, but obviously the letting the client down, letting down on their feelings of ethical and moral obligation as an attorney. How did you handle that part of it?
Well, the moral part is actually, I think, the easiest part. So
Hmm.
think about it like this. We have a contract with our clients, and the contract is essentially this. We as attorneys do really, really excellent work for our clients. And I don't know that many, well, no, I know attorneys who don't do that, unfortunately. And they
Yeah.
should all go to lawyer prison because they're terrible lawyers. But you know that my friends, we try really, really hard for our clients. So, you know, we maintain our end of the bargain. And then the other end of the bargain for the client is you pay us 100% for the work you do. So if they don't do that, it's the exact same as if you allowed clients to steal money from you, like to pick your pocket of
Hmm.
cash that you have. There is no substantive difference between these. I've talked to so many people, and I can't come up with a substantive difference between these two things at all. So you're just allowing people to steal money from you and your family and your paralegal and you know your paralegal's family, your team, and their families, right? And you would never allow that. You would literally never allow that sort of thing, but you allow it all the time.
Hmm.
So it's really the moral part is really easy. Like you just don't let people pick your pocket, okay? And then the ethical part is really the how do I do this without materially prejudicing my client? And you know, if you're getting paid 50 cents on the dollar, that's a real hard question for you because you're probably very unorganized in a lot of things.
Hmm.
And you're going to need to organize your cases better such that you can stop the case when your clients don't pay you. And there are ways to structure cases so you can do that. But, you know, if you're super unstructured at this point, that's going to take some serious work.
Well, and for firms right now that have started listening to this and they're going, yeah, I love that. Also, I feel like I've got, $300,000 in collectibles right now. For that attorney, are you telling them, hey, you need to go and get some practice reps by collecting on that 300,000, or is it better to press reset and get better about it going forward?
I, I would probably go initially and try to get as much money as I could out of that AR and then realize, but fully realizing that you're probably not going to collect more than maybe 20 to 30%. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you have what I call the stupid tax. Like you're going to pay the stupid.
Yes.
And that's okay. Like I paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in stupid tax over the years. And it's very painful and you're going to resent it. You're going to resent your clients for it, but you really should be resenting yourself for it because it's
Mm.
your fault. And get over that. Get over yourself and pay the stupid tax, move on with your life.
That's a lot of success, right? We pay a lot of stupid taxes
Mhm.
in life overall. I'm curious, the stupid tax, what other aspects of your firm do you feel like you've had to pay the stupid tax on?
Hiring people that I shouldn't have hired. Or no, no, no. Well, yes, there's that. There's that. But that less than that, it's not firing the people I should have fired when I should have fired them.
Man, every entrepreneur has to go through that to really realize it. Like we can tell people over and over again this, but it's like they have to experience it. I do think we can help them move a little bit faster towards that experience. So right now, inevitably, Marco, there's someone who's listening who's going, I know exactly who you're talking about. It's my office manager who's been with me for 8 years, and that person has to go, but I'm so scared. How, Marco, do we push that
Yeah.
person into that place of confidence?
Yeah, so you're scared, at least if you're anything like me, you're scared because you don't have somebody in the pipeline to replace that C, D, F player with, right?
Mhm.
So you don't have an A player to replace the D player with. So what I would say is, unless it's you absolutely have to get rid of that person now because you just can't deal with it emotionally or they're gonna mess up your firm or something. I'd go find
Mhm.
some A players. Like just take time, go do some kind of sub rosa interviewing or whatever and get an A player, and then when you find that A player, get rid of the D player, but do it quickly, otherwise you're just going to sit on it.
And then the fear that comes from that is, what if the person finds out that I'm looking for their replacement, right? And that'll drive them insane over time, which to me, it's if they see that you've posted a job ad for their position, why are they looking at job ads anyways?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
but this is why you do it quickly. And
Mhm.
I would say you don't need to do the job ad thing for most positions in a law firm, to be honest with you. Here's my favorite way of finding attorneys or paralegals or anything like that. What I do is I
Awesome.
text my friends or I text my colleagues and I say, hey, if you could steal anybody in this, with this job uh, from another law firm, who would you steal? Right. And it works so well. I don't know what it is about the phrasing of that question, but everybody's like, "Oh yeah, I'd steal so and so, or I'd steal so and so," and then you go literally approach so and have that kind of sub rosa interview. So you don't need to put it on Indeed, really. You certainly can if you want, but you don't need to do that sort of thing. You can do it under the table, and then you just don't have to worry about putting it out there and your D level player finding it and then making your life terrible.
So in your firm, I mean, how active is the talent recruitment pipeline for your practice?
It's pretty, we do that quite a bit. In fact, I spent the last 2 hours doing that. But that's more my job now. Since I don't work the cases anymore, I do the business side of things. And what I've
Mhm.
realized is that law firms sell nothing if not the expertise of the individual attorneys, right, and paralegals. So you want to upgrade and get A-level players as much as humanly possible. And if I'm not working cases or doing the marketing side of, well, I do the marketing sort of thing, but I don't do the cases side, then my job really is to put forth the best people that we can possibly find, find them, acquire them, the whole bit, so we can give really good service to our clients. So I spend a lot of time on the recruiting arm of things now.
And when you're in this recruitment process, so you kind of talked about how you might find people by talking with others. When you enter into those discussions with potential talent for the firm, what are some of the universal traits you look for?
So we don't look for universal traits. We look for really specific traits. And what I did is I went through and I looked at our top A players, right? And then I tried to figure out like what are the characteristics of those top A players. Then we can kind of backtrack from that and find people that share those characteristics, and then also find places where you know we can find firms that we can steal people from essentially, right? Like that produce people like that, right? So you're
Yeah.
just trying to find the pipelines as much as humanly possible. But we don't do general characteristics. It's very specific, like where do they come from? Where do they go to school? What did they do for how long before they came here? So on and so forth.
Okay. So do you have like a set of core values or anything that you're looking at for that alignment? Or is it really strictly like this is the work product that we're looking for and that's our focal point?
No, we have core values that we look for, and we try to see what we're trying to do is get the characteristics of the people who are going to fit into those core values. So yeah.
Yeah. In searching for people, what have been some of the biggest obstacles that you've had to overcome over the years?
In the beginning, it was money. So I was
Hmm.
tight with cash, and I was trying to bring people over, but I wasn't paying enough. And I had to realize that you want grade A talent, you need to pay grade A talent, man. So everybody wants a culture, right? Everybody kind of
Mhm.
wants those sorts of soft things from an employer. But more than anything else, A players want to get treated and paid like A players. So pay them. That's what I realized. Like, okay, I need to adjust this such that we can acquire those people and that talent and have it here in the law firm. So that was one of them.
See, is that so? That type of pragmatic thinking is something that I really value in what you tend to share online, Marco, because there is so much. Um, I'll politely call it oftentimes aspirational wisdom as opposed to pragmatic wisdom
Yep.
that gets shared. You and I were sort of joking before pressing record about how many people are just excited to call themselves a CEO as opposed to the way that you talked about it. You're in the business of talent acquisition. That's one of your focal points right now, and it doesn't really matter what the title is. There are roles that you have to play. um, what are some other areas, and maybe the CEO one is one that we could chew on a little bit, where you see this overinflation of a concept that causes firm owners sometimes to lose sight of the real work that has to be done?
Oh man, well, I could get myself in trouble with this one. But so I think it's let's start with the status. So I think the status is definitely one of them. Now everybody, I always tell people this: pick your status, right? Because
Sure.
everybody has a status thing that they indulge in, right?
Hmm.
This is a bespoke Italian suit. This is a status thing for me. I love how I look in it. I love how I feel in it. I'm willing to drop coin and go to Italy and do the whole bit. So this is a status thing. But the CEO thing, the title thing, couldn't care less. Like
Hmm.
titles make absolutely no sense to me, right? It's like how much money is in my bank account? How well are we serving our clients? How is my team doing? How are they doing on the money side with their families and so on and so forth? That's what really kind of gets me going. But a lot of law firm owners aren't like that, as far as I can tell. They want to be called a law firm owner or CEO or something like that, and they want to acquire. Oh, this is another one they do. They acquire attorneys, right? So instead of figuring out what their bottom line is and their net profit margin and their net worth as a person, like they're just acquiring attorneys so they can tell other attorneys how many attorneys they have in their law firm as like some substitute for net profit margin. So, there are a lot of those types of things. I think another one that tends to get in the way is your politics. So you, I know a lot of attorneys that on both sides of the aisle, to be honest with you, that
Hmm.
will really let their politics get in the way of serving their clients and growing their law firm. And becomes more about kind of virtue signaling to your political clan rather than serving your clients exceptionally well and ensuring that your team is very well taken care of and making the money that they should so they can take care of their families. So I see those as very serious impediments.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame sometimes that status element does impede on putting in the work itself, and that again is something that I see you doing is putting in the work, whether it's correcting the billables issue, talent acquisition. Well, you may not be one to brag for it. Last time I checked, I think you have something like 14 attorneys that are at least listed on your website. You may have more than that at this point. So
Yeah.
you've built a significant firm, which means you're putting in the work to build that type of firm. So that transition to having that many attorneys, I mean, there's a lot of different steps in that journey. What have been some of the most difficult moments of transformation for you as you grew that team and grew the firm?
Yeah, so we have about 17 now. So some had just come on and then passed the bar. So I think
Mm.
that's the difference in the number. But 0 to 1 is always the hardest. So I
Hmm.
spent 5 years essentially zero, like me, right? And then I went from 0 to 1, and figuring that out is always very difficult. And then going from boy, going from 2 or 3 to like 10 is a very different experience because that's all, as far as I can tell, honestly, that's like all marketing at that
Yeah.
point. It's just the revenue growth that comes through marketing. And now we've we've gone to 14, 15, 16, 17, right there, and it's slowed down a little bit. So we're figuring out the sales side of things. We've
Mm.
moved into another state as well, and that's a very, very different process. Let me tell you, like it's 10 times easier to hire 5 attorneys in your state than to find a really good attorney outside your state
Wow.
because to start a law office because you don't know the culture in the new place and you don't know the people in the new place, right? It's you're kind of shooting from the hip, riding blind, whatever your metaphor is, but it's very, very difficult. And at that point, to do that sort of thing is really when you need to know what your values are, exactly what you're going to do as a law firm, exactly who you are as a person and who you want to do business with. Those all have to
Mm.
be laid out and communicated very, very clearly. Otherwise, I have no idea how you can find anybody that isn't going to be a complete disaster.
So who are the types of people that you like to do business with?
Oh, that I like to do business with? It's funny. Uh, I like boring people.
Okay.
I like boring and slightly neurotic people, and when it comes to attorneys, because I'm probably somewhat boring in some aspects of my life. I'm boring, but I try not to be boring. I try to be interesting, but I'm not really neurotic at all. right? As a personality matter, I'm not really neurotic.
Hmm.
So I actually look for people that are slightly neurotic and super detail oriented in most parts of their life because I'm simply not that guy. Like I'm detail oriented in some things, very, very detail oriented, but in most things I'm just not. And then I take risks and I do all that kind of thing. So I need people around me that hold me to the ground, as it were. So those are a couple things. And then
That's very.
my other thing is I don't do jerks, right? I just don't do jerks. I don't have time for that in my life. I don't do stupid people either, right? You got to be bright, and you have to be willing to play well with others, which is funny because I own a law firm because I don't play well with others. I'm a terrible employee because I don't play well with others. But when I'm in a leadership role, I love it, right? I love putting together a team, and I love my team. I love coming in and then talking with them and upgrading the team and helping them with their with their lives and watching them grow and all of that stuff. I adore. Um, but I get to curate those people, and that's the difference.
Yeah, with that no jerks policy, obviously family law is famous, infamous for some of the trading of letters, we're doing this aggressive maneuver in order to fulfill the client's emotional desire to have an aggressive maneuver be played. But when you have that no jerks philosophy, it seems like you're looking at this from a different framework. So I'm curious how that no jerks philosophy translates into the legal work itself.
I think it actually translates really well. So, what you've described is about 10% of family law attorneys, in my experience, right? But
Yeah.
they make us all look bad. They make us
Yep.
look terrible. So, it's about 10%. But most of us just want to get along and want to do our thing and then go home. Where I think attorneys really get into problems is when one they let their clients' problems become their problems, and then they're just like fighting their own fights but they're using their clients as a proxy for it, like that,
Right.
So there's that, and then a lot of times clients will look at the case obviously from their client's perspective, but they forget that there are children involved, when it comes to
Mm.
family law, at least. So what we do and what I tell my attorneys is, hey, look, we have clients, we have ethical obligations to them. We will back their play unless it's unethical. But really, first and foremost, you need to think of the kids, and they need to
Hmm.
think of the kids, and you need to direct them to think of their children. So, and when you do that, it really tends to kind of tamp down the temperature and get things done much, much quicker. So that's how we look at it. And I have colleagues that do that, but they
Hmm.
aren't doing it as explicitly as I am. Like we talk about this stuff all the time in the law firm, and it really does help us to get done with the cases as quickly as possible, to get our clients, on with their lives, and to try to mess up their kids as little as we can.
Yeah. With all of this, this is this amalgamation of ideas here that we've kind of gone over the past few minutes. It brings back around the initial concept of billing practices and actually getting the billing taken care of and getting that 100% recovery rate on the financials. I know that there are attorneys and some firm owners who struggle with that, including in family law. Like we're being good custodians of these lives and how they are going to evolve, et cetera. And I have these attorneys who don't want to be jerks. They want to feel like they're playing fair. They want to resolve cases quickly. We're not overbilling clients. And sometimes that starts to bleed into a lower recovery rate. How do you help your
Mm.
attorneys or your team, however you handle billing, keep that recovery rate at maximum?
This is how we handle billing. I go to the attorneys, especially in the beginning. So billing is a skill, right? And it's
Mhm.
actually the first skill we teach our attorneys. Like this is how we bill. This is the technology we use. These are our principles in billing, and so on and so forth. That is literally the first thing, because if clients or if our attorneys get that in the beginning, like the
Mhm.
skill of billing, then we found that they tend to get everything else. But if they never get that up front, then they tend to be bad attorneys kind of all the way around, because it usually means they're not conscientious, right? They're not really looking to figure out the system and so forth. Uh, so really what we tell them is You bill for every second that you work on a case, and no more. Okay. Because, and what I tell them is if you overbill your client, we're stealing from the client, and that is unacceptable, and we will
Right.
fire you. Like that's not happening. You underbill the client, like you don't bill for what the work you actually do, then you're stealing from yourself and from the firm and from your paralegal, and that is unacceptable as well. So you bill for exactly what you do, no more, no less. If there's a problem, like if you take too long doing something, you bill for it anyway, and then you go tell your team leader about it, and they can write off that amount on the invoice, but they get to make that determination. You don't get to make
Mm.
that determination. You're just billing for the work that you do.
So that team leader structure, is there, say, one team leader per a certain number of attorneys? Is the team leader also an attorney?
Yes, yes. All team leads are attorneys. So what we have are teams of 4 attorneys and a paralegal and a third. So it's one paralegal for every 3 attorneys. So there's one lead attorney, and then there are 3 attorneys and 3 other attorneys in a team, and then there's one full-time paralegal in that team, and another paralegal who switches between teams.
And that team lead, since they're an attorney and they presumably have their own billables, but are also working in the team lead capacity, how do you reconcile those roles?
So they bill less than the other attorneys because they have administrative duties. So
Mhm.
they bill 80% of what a normal attorney would, and then we figure the 20% is just going to be administrative stuff, and we take a little bit of a hit on that, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's very clear. You've got so many of these things worked out. You've solved a lot of problems. You have systems in place. How long did this process take you, and how could you have accelerated this journey of setting up these systems?
Oh, literally years, and it's a lot of it's trial and error, to be honest
Yeah.
with you. So like I said, the first 5 or 6 years, there were no real systems. It was me running around like a chicken with my head cut off. And then it was slowly like, oh, hey, here's a system that solves a whole bunch of problems. And so that's what I try to do is I try to figure out like a keystone system that would solve a whole bunch of problems downstream from it essentially. And then do that and then make another one and make another one and make another one. So I didn't have to invent like 1,000 systems. I had to invent a few systems, and they solved a whole bunch of issues. But figuring out which of those systems are going to solve all these problems, you're not entirely sure. The getting paid one solves a boatload.
Yeah.
It solves a boatload of them. So there's that. Communication systems. We communicate in a very kind of unique way in the firm. That's solved a lot. There are a few intake. So really being great at the intake and the sales and the closing side of it,
Mhm.
that's an incredible system that's really kind of powered our growth over the years. The way to the way when I look back that I would have accelerated that growth is one I would have collected from the very beginning, because that gives you a whole bunch of
Yeah.
money to experiment with. But other than that is just the desire to experiment, and the desire and willingness to fail.
Mm.
Because when you do that, when you experiment and you fail, you're going to figure things out, and then you're going to get much better at it. But it's the rapidity with which you do that, right? You just have to be experimenting and failing, and then using what works and incorporating that. You got to be doing that all the time. And I wish I had saved myself probably 7 years by just experimenting all the time up front.
So, along the lines of failure, I'm curious, what's your favorite failure that you've ever had?
I remember one in particular. It was a billing failure. So we bill once a month.
Mhm.
And I had a friend who, I don't know how she makes this work, man, but she does. Like, she's incredible. So she billed once a week. So I thought, hey, that sounds like a good idea. What we could do is we could lower our retainer and bill once a week, and people would hire us more because we have a lower retainer. So this is the thought process, and this all makes complete logical sense, right?
Right.
And it was a complete and utter disaster. I was just wrong on every account. So we only did it for a month, and my paralegal who'd been with me for a good long time at that point, she's like, you quit this now, otherwise I quit, I leave. She just hated it. It was just a terrible system. And we we ended up lowering the retainer, which meant that quality people didn't hire us, like lower quality people hired us. So we
Hmm.
actually retained worse clients doing that. And it just taught me so many things. But thankfully we only did it like 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks or something like that, and we went back to the old system.
You pulled the ripcord on that one real hard.
Real fast. Yep, absolutely real fast. So there have been a lot of other failures, man. But that's kind of one of my favorites.
Oh man, I mean that teaches such an immediate visceral lesson, the kind of thing that you don't go back on. Now, when you have that other attorney who's doing that, would you look at it and say, okay, I understand why it worked for her, and I also understand why it would never work for us, or is this just completely baffling at this point?
No, no. I mean, I know how she makes it work. I've talked with her about it. But she did it from kind of day one, and she just kind of figured that out. And I was trying to change midstream. But also, I think one of the really important things that people need to realize in their law firms is their law firms are a reflection of the person who's running the law firm, right? So there are
Amen.
things that run for law that work really, really well for law firms, that will absolutely not work in another law firm because you are an individual and it just won't function for you or it won't function for your team, right? Now, there are things that need to function across all teams. You can figure that
Hmm.
out. But there are so many things that are that just won't go because you are who you are. And that's okay, right? Like you don't have to feel like you need to do everything that all the other law firms do to be successful because sometimes they just don't work. And you need to realize in a law firm there are like five things that create a really successful law firm, right? It's the power law. It's like very, very few inputs account for a tremendous amount of your outputs, right?
Hmm.
So there are very few systems that actually do that. And you don't need to incorporate all the systems from everybody else. You just need to find those few systems that work with you and your law firm and your culture that make you truly successful.
That is such an important point, and I want to, highlight that here because this has been a sticking point I find for many firm owners, especially with the preponderance of various systems and, really, hey, you have to 100% duplicate this. Almost like the game that we're trying to win is proof that I'm running someone else's system, and the question is, like, are you building Marco's firm or are you building your firm? What are you learning from him and translating into your practice? Because you can't build Marco's firm because it's his firm. But can you look at it and go, yeah, wow, my life would be amplified, magnified, and improved if my billing system was at 100% recovery rate? Yes, that is something that you can take away and perhaps is duplicating what Marco does, or you need to find your own way to communicate with clients. Actually, to that and to continue the billing discussion, as is that, getting paid being the big thing they don't teach you, in order to collect that difference, I would think between, say, 90% and 100% is some type of force multiplier, some type of willingness to do what other firms may not be willing to do. What's that for you?
So that for us really is one, we're vetting clients very, very closely. Like we turn down tons and tons of clients, right? Because wealth is not found in the money that you accept. Wealth is found in the money you reject,
Mm.
right? So we're vetting our clients. Like we know who we are, we know who we want to work with, we know how much we're going to cost and so forth, and how to talk about it, and how to market, and how to sell. Like we know all that. So we're vetting our clients. And then we're being very, very diligent about stopping work when clients don't pay us. So we get paid and we fire clients because we'll make mistakes on the front end, right? And then we get rid of our bad clients. And we have and that really creates, so it's really the clients, like the quality of clients is a huge, huge deal. And then making sure those quality clients pay us is, that next portion of it. But for example, on the front is a good example. I think that most law firms would benefit from implementing actually on the front end of acquiring clients. Like we don't take clients who have had attorneys before us
Hmm.
because we just found over time that we're not really good at serving those types of clients. And they usually kind of, those are like the craziest clients you get for the most part. So we just determined we're going to be wrong about that every once in a while. They're going to be great clients and we pass over them and that's fine. But
Right.
we're going to get rid of like a huge amount of problems if we don't take clients who've had attorneys before us. We found that our clients are elevated because of that type of thing. Now, again, this goes back to what I want to do is I want to minimize the problems that we have with clients so we can get through the cases quickly because our money is made in like the churn through
Hmm.
clients. But again, this is my law firm and this is the way I want to, this is my vision for how we help clients. But then there are many other law firms where they don't want to do that sort of thing. They want to get into the nitty gritty of really terribly hard cases and help those people, and that's a vision thing. That's what they want to do as attorneys, and so my system is not going to work for them. They're going to need to find different ways to satisfy their law firm and make their law firm successful.
So kind of switching gears a little bit outside the technical and the billing, et cetera, because I just have to ask you about it. Yeah, I see you put out content where you are unabashed about talking about making $1 million, right? About the suits from Italy, really just celebrating the things that you do enjoy. You mentioned the whole status thing earlier. What was a breakthrough moment for you in the, you know what, this is who I am? And I know that there are probably people who don't want to hear this discussion out loud, but I'm ready to start sharing this openly.
Yeah. So for me, I've always lived out loud anyway. I'm from Alaska, and I was just
85
taught
people
that.
in your town, right?
85 people in the village, man. It wasn't a town; it was a village. So I've always kind of been like this, and Alaska kind of puts it out there and really facilitates that in people. So I always did that. But really, what it came down to was I spent the first 5 6 years of the law firm after I opened it just walking blind through hell, and it was terrible. And a large part of that was because I just simply didn't know what to do because no one would talk about it. No one would talk about how to be successful as an attorney with money. They would lie about it. They would say they were successful because they had a BMW. And then, lo and
The
behold,
BMW. Oh,
I would do,
shots
yeah,
fired, Marco.
yeah, man. I mean, look, I like me some BMWs, but anyway, I would do their divorces, and I figured out that they didn't actually have any
Yeah.
cash, so they were just lying about a whole bunch of things. And then the really
Yeah.
successful ones wouldn't share with people like me who were terribly broke and unsuccessful how to become them, right? And how to elevate and how to make money to take care of their families. And when I got to the point where I started making some money, there were a few people, and I'm incredibly grateful to those people, but there are very few of them. So when I started making money and I started figuring things out, I thought, you know what? I'm not going to do that, man. I'm simply not going to do that to my colleagues. I'm going to talk about this, and if it makes people uncomfortable, that's cool because I'm not talking to those people. I'm talking
Mhm.
to the guy or the gal like me who was $450,000 in debt and with a wife, thankfully, that stayed with him, even though he's a complete freaking idiot. And but he just doesn't know what to do. He like literally has no idea, and he's looking for somebody to that's been through this and that can teach him something. And hopefully, I'm filling that. And if people get mad about that, well, screw them. I don't care.
There you go. I love it. Completely unabashed. And actually, speaking of your wife and kind of related to all this, she has her doctorate in vocal performance. She's capable of singing opera. You reference Steinbeck and Kafka in your bio on your website. You seem to be a man who enjoys good things in life while also saying pizza is proof that God loves us. You have all of these different parts of you. You seem very full of joy. Is this an outlook you've always had or one you've developed for yourself?
I think I've developed it over time. So I've always kind of enjoyed life, but as an attorney, when I hit my stride, I really started developing it. Like, if you knew me from 2010 to 2015, I I was a good guy. I tried really, really hard for my clients, but I was really bad at the business of law, and I
Mm,
let myself get fat, and my spiritual life wasn't great. All of these things. Like I was a different guy back then.
yeah.
And then, in 2015, I decided to change things. And that takes time. We're humans. We're not good at this whole thing. But when I started hitting my stride, then my life started to change. I looked at myself in a different way. I started acting differently. And then when you get enough money that you can buy certain things, and money really does just kind of facilitate who you are.
Yes.
So I had changed, and then I got some money, and it just accelerated that. And yeah, it's fantastic. Like I have become much happier with myself and in the practice of law over the years.
That's fantastic. I'm happy for you. It's very clear to see that joy, and it's that infectious and at times almost ravenous joy of like there's so much to enjoy and consume and celebrate in life. Let's find our way into all of it, both the things that the finery of life and the simple things of life. I'm glad you're putting that message out
Yeah.
there, Marco.
And I do want to say this. I know we're probably bumping up on time, but I do want to say this. You at younger attorneys, you will get tons and tons of people, older attorneys like me, your law professor, whatever it is. I've heard literally members of our Supreme Court talk about this stuff, just how awful it is essentially to be an attorney. It's
Oh,
such terribly high. It's so terribly high stress, and we snort cocaine all the day and drink whiskey, get divorced, all these
right.
things, right? And how it's inherent in the practice. That's the thing that I hate is they
Agreed.
try to kind of make it like that. No, it's not. It's not inherent in the practice. If you change yourself, if you do one nice thing per day for a colleague, right, to make their life slightly better, even if you
Mhm.
don't believe it, you're just kind of making it up and you think it's hokey, but you do that sort of thing, you're going to love being an attorney, right? We can change this on an individual level. And that's what I did. I just said, okay, like I don't want to act like this anymore, so I'm going to act a different way. And after I made that determination, like I love it. I love it. I love attorneys. I love what I do. I love the service I'm able to give to people. Like it's incredible. And this kind of negativity and naysaying from attorneys is really, really harmful. And for young
Mhm.
attorneys, don't buy into it. Please just don't buy into it. You can create something fantastic with your life in the law.
Amen to that, Marco. Amen. So I have one last question for you, but before we hit that, if someone wants to connect with you, reach out to you, etc., what's the best way for them to do that?
LinkedIn is the only social media that I give myself. We're actually going through marketing now, and we'll get on, we're getting on social, but I really don't like social media. LinkedIn is the one place where I actually go and I post and I interact with people because they're my colleagues and I really enjoy it over there. So you
Fantastic.
just search Marco Brown and I'll come up.
Excellent. And the last question for you, Marco, what are you reading, watching, and listening to these days?
What am I reading? I am finishing up a 1,000-page book on the resurrection of Christ by a guy named Gary Habermas, and just very, very interesting stuff.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Love
It's
it.
the first volume of four, so I think they're gonna be like 4,000-page books. It's incredible.
That's amazing. What an investment in your spiritual life.
Yeah, but no, that's great stuff. What am I listening to? Uh, I try to listen to. I like Grant Cardone a lot, so I listen to his stuff. Jordan Peterson, I really enjoy Jordan Peterson quite a bit. His podcast I find to be really excellent most of the time.
Hmm.
And then what am I watching? I'm trying to watch less random YouTube videos, but everybody has their thing, and that's my thing. That's what I'm trying to get off. But when I when I'm the best me, what am I watching? Series. I'll find a good series on Netflix or something like that. I don't have anything presently, but I'm always trying to go through and find something.
I just have to ask real quick, what's the YouTube rabbit hole of choice for you?
Oh man, this is gonna sound terrible. So the YouTube Shorts, that algorithm gets me. Like it
Yeah.
knows exactly who I am, man. It's an incredible algorithm. So I will tell you this. My kind of white trash delight on YouTube Shorts is the Whatever podcast. Just clips from the Whatever podcast.
I love it. An admission of guilt here. You know what,
Oh man,
counselor? I'm with it.
it's just so not me in any way, shape, or form. But I love this setup. I love everything about it. So yeah, the Whatever podcast clips.
That's fantastic. Well, Marco, thank you so much for being here with your energy, your insights, that accumulated experience and life and business lessons learned the hard way. I really appreciate your time today.
Hey, thank you for having me on. It's been a lot of fun.
Good. I'm glad. I'm sure we'll have another discussion in the future. And we'll see you all in the next episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School.